The millionaire Trembles, after the 6-year-old girl tied to the tracks, reveals a shocking secret. Victor Sinclair never imagined his quiet weekend getaway in the sleepy coastal town of Seabreeze would turn into a nightmare. The crisp ocean air was supposed to clear his mind, but instead it brought a chilling scream that ripped through the fog. Heart pounding, he raced toward the old train tracks, winding along the cliffs, and there she was, a tiny girl, no older than 6, bound tight to the steel rails, her big, terrified eyes locked on the distant whistle of an approaching train. Victor's hands shook as he barked orders to passers-by, his suit soaked with cold sweat. Time blurred. The train's rumble grew louder, cruel, relentless. Somehow, fueled by pure adrenaline and panic, he tore the ropes, lifting Clara off the tracks just seconds before the monster metal beast thundered past. Her small body trembled against his chest. Silent, but for shaky breaths. Then came the words. Her voice, fragile and full of confusion, sliced through Victor's chest. It hit him harder than anything in his high-stakes boardroom battles or business deals. Clara was his daughter, a fact buried deep in his past, kept secret for years after a reckless affair he never intended to claim. The revelation knocked the breath out of him. His carefully built world, the fortress of wealth and control, cracked wide open. People in the crowd whispered, eyes darting. "That can't be true. Is this some twisted stunt?" Victor stared down at Clara, whose gaze held strange intensity beyond her years. She clutched his hand and murmured words he didn't understand. Visions, warnings, dark shadows looming. He shook his head. Just a child's imagination, he told himself. But the air thickened with unease. Something invisible, creeping. Then, as if the scene below wasn't twisted enough, his phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. A message from an anonymous number blinked on the screen. "We know who she is, and we know who you are. Play by our rules, or everything falls." Victor's throat tightened. His breath hitched. The man who thrived on power was suddenly a cornered animal. Clara's soft voice broke the silence again, whispering about things she shouldn't know. Dark secrets, dangers close enough to touch. Victor clenched his fists, fighting a rising fear that shaking hands couldn't hide anymore. He wondered, could a little girl see the enemy lurking in his shadow? Or was the danger growing darker because of their reunion? The sea breeze carried the faint, threatening sound of another train whistle, low and unforgiving. The stakes screamed louder than ever, pounding in his chest. Victor Sinclair, once a titan of industry, faced a gut-wrenching choice: shield his newfound daughter from a ruthless world, or retreat into the cold safety of silence and lies. His phone pinged again. This time a chilling text. "You don't know what's coming next." The crowd watched, breath held. Victor stared at the message. His world was shifting beneath his feet. The night had only just begun. Hey, before you continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content. And while you're there, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes a difference. Let's interact." Victor's phone buzzed again, the chilling message lingering in the pit of his stomach. You don't know what's coming next. His mind raced, trying to decipher the implications. This was no longer just about rescue. This was personal. "Daddy?" Clara's voice tugged him back to reality. Her small hand felt warm and real against the shivers of doubt that crawled down his spine. He noticed the crowd, their eyes wide and mouths pursed in whispers, a collective suspense hanging in the air. What had just happened felt surreal. But Clara was real, flesh and blood, staring up at him with those innocent eyes filled with fear and confusion. He knelt down, trying to catch her gaze. "Clara, we need to get out of here," he urged, putting his arm protectively around her shoulders as a breath of wind pulled at his suit. But she didn't respond. Instead, she fixed her eyes past him, scanning the anxious faces watching, as if searching for something beyond the crowd. And then, just as the train's rumble faded into silence, a figure broke through the bystanders, pushing toward them. It was a woman, her face pale, hair wild and disheveled. "Victor!" she yelled, her voice sharp and frantic. "You need to listen to me." His heart raced again, but for different reasons now. He recognized her. It was Lena, a woman he had buried deep in his past. The affair he thought he'd buried came storming back. The one that had led to Clara's conception. He had never expected to see her again. "Lena, what are you doing here?" he blurted, shock flooding through him, clashing against the whirlwind of emotions already brewing. "Clara is in danger," she shouted, pointing a trembling finger at the girl. "They know about you. They know about her." There was a pause, thick and suffocating. The crowd leaned closer, straining to hear. Whispers swelled again, confusion bubbling into suspicion now. "What are you talking about?" Victor's voice trembled as the weight of her words crashed down on him. "They're coming for you, for both of you. I tried to protect her, but I couldn't. I thought you'd never look for her." She stepped closer, desperation in her eyes. "I was too scared to reach out. But now..." Suddenly, a deafening sound ripped through the air. A truck skidded around a corner, tires screeching violently as it barreled toward them. Victor moved, pulling Clara closer, but the world around them erupted into chaos. People scrambled, some screaming, while others tried to protect their loved ones. It felt like a nightmare unfolding before him. "Get down!" Victor yelled, muscles tensed. The truck swerved sharply, heading right for them, and his heart dropped. Just as he braced for the impact, Clara squealed in fear. But then her voice pierced through the noise. "Mummy?" she cried out. The crowd stilled. Victor froze, confusion wrapping around him. Clara's voice rang clear. Before he could process the implications, Lena gasped, and Victor turned to see as shock painted her features. "Mummy?" Clara repeated, her eyes wide, glistened with tears, but not tears of fear. Hope? Recognition? In that moment, realization washed over him like ice water. The truth struck harder than the approaching truck. Clara wasn't just the daughter he never claimed. She was the daughter they both thought lost. Victor's blood turned cold as he pieced it together. But who was Clara really? The truck hit the brakes, but Victor's world had already turned upside down. He had to figure it out. The danger was real. Clara's identity twisted their lives together in ways he couldn't yet fathom. The stakes? Extremely high. And the truth? It still loomed just beyond reach. What was next? The night was still young, and the shadows of their past were closing in fast. As the truck bore down on them, panic filled the air. Victor's heart raced, but Clara's small voice echoed in his mind. "Mommy?" The word hung heavy, transforming the moment into something charged with fear and confusion. Lena's face shifted, ghostly pale, as she stared at Clara, as if time had frozen around them. "Clara, you need to hold on to me," Victor shouted, pulling her tighter. The screeching of tires nearly drowned him out. In one swift motion, he positioned himself in front of her, shielding her small frame with his body. The truck came to a halt just inches away, the driver's face twisted with shock and anger. But Victor had no time to breathe. He glanced back at Clara. "Are you okay?" But she wasn't looking at him anymore. Her eyes were wide, darting to Lena, then back again, as if they shared a silent language that Victor couldn't yet decipher. Lena stepped closer, urgency etched on her face. "Victor, you don't understand. The people after you, they're here." Before he could respond, two men in dark suits emerged from the shadows, striding toward them with cold determination. Victor's gut twisted. "What do you want?" "Stay away from her, Sinclair." One of them sneered, his voice low and dangerous. "You've already put her in enough danger." "I'm not going anywhere," Victor shot back, stepping protectively in front of Clara again. But she broke free from his hold, moving towards Lena, a wary light in her eyes. "Clara, no!" Victor managed to grab her wrist just in time. "Mommy knows!" Clara cried, glancing fiercely at Lena. The word fell heavy, and stunned silence followed, pin-drop quiet. Victor felt the world tilt. "What do you mean she knows?" Victor demanded, trying to control the sudden rise of panic in his chest. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rippling through them like waves of doubt. Lena's face twisted in shock. "Clara, you can't." But her protest was silenced when Clara pulled away fully, marching up to the stranger. "I've been waiting," Clara said, her voice small but filled with an eerie certainty. "I know what they want." "I know what you did." Victor's eyes widened. The crowd gasped, confusion flooding the air again. "Clara, stop. You don't know what you're saying." He reached for her, but was met with the chilling look in her eyes. Suddenly, Clara's expression shifted, something dark clouding her innocent features. "Daddy, I'm not just your daughter," she said. "I'm the one they want." Victor stumbled back, horror washing over him. His heart tore at the seams. "What do you mean?" he gasped, dread pooling deep in his stomach. "What do you know?" Before she could respond, the suited men exchanged a knowing glance. "The kid's got a gift," one said, almost mockingly. "We can't let her slip away again." Victor reeled, grappling with the weight of the revelation. The crowd became a blur. "What do you mean, a gift?" he croaked. "Clara, tell me!" But Clara shook her head, stepping back into the darkness, her small form almost swallowed by shadows. "I can't say. They'll hear. They'll take me again." The world spun as Victor felt the walls closing in. Everything was unraveling, threads of reality tearing apart. Darkness curled around Clara like a shroud, transforming the air into something heavy and cold. A deafening silence fell, and Victor could only stare helplessly. The men advanced, eyes glowing with a predatory gleam. Desperation clawed at his chest. He took a step forward. "Don't touch her." The crowd held its breath. What was happening? Who was this little girl? Time stretched and twisted. He was no longer sure he could protect her, or even himself. Clara's voice broke through the chaos. "You have to make a choice, Daddy. Either protect me, or let them have me." A sudden flash of danger, realization dawning like a storm. He felt himself shatter. Was he really ready for the secrets that would unfold? "Clara, please." The ground beneath him shifted, the truth spiraling farther away as shadows began to creep closer. Something monumental was about to break. What had he raised? What lay hidden within Clara? The night grew deeper, and Victor understood all too well. They were no longer just in a fight for survival. They were tangled in a web of secrets far beyond their understanding, and the answers loomed like a dark storm on the horizon. What had Clara inherited from him and from Lena? He needed to figure it out before it was too late, before something worse could happen. As the men moved closer, Victor's stomach coiled with dread. He tightened his grip on Clara, whose small hand felt surprisingly strong despite her age. There was a tension in the air, thick and screaming, wrapping around them all like a vice. Clara stood resolute, her wide gaze set on the suited men, whispering words so quiet only he could hear. "Daddy, I can't let them take me," she said, her voice trembling, yet determined. Victor's heart raced. "Clara, please." He was at a loss, the world spiraling as shadows closed in. Lena, behind him, seemed frozen. "We have to move, Victor. They'll—" But before she could finish, the ground shook. The earth tremored underfoot, sending waves of panic through the crowd. People stumbled, gasps of shock filling the air. The suited men stopped in their tracks, eyes widening. The truck that had screeched to a halt moments ago suddenly erupted in a fiery blaze. Flames shot up, a bright orange consuming metal and glass. The crowd shrieked, stumbling back as chaos erupted. "Get down!" Victor shouted, pulling Clara close to him, shielding her from the heat. But amidst the crackling of flames came a piercing screech, and Victor looked up just in time to see the tunnel behind the train tracks glow with an eerie light. The shadows shifted, coiling and swirling as if alive. Something powerful lurked just beyond the threshold. Then it happened. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the fiery chaos. It was tall, draped in a black cloak that seemed to absorb the unhealthy glow of the flames. "Stop!" the figure thundered, holding up a hand. The crowd silenced, falling into a stunned stillness, eyes drawn to this new presence. Victor's mouth went dry as the figure stepped closer, revealing a face he thought he would never see again. His estranged father, Richard Sinclair. "Dad?" Victor whispered, confusion crashing over him like a wave. Clara's grip tightened around his hand. "You know him?" Her eyes shifted back and forth between Victor and the figure before them. Fear mingled with an almost childish curiosity. "Yes." But Victor couldn't believe it. You're supposed to be dead?" Richard finished, his voice heavy with a mix of responsibility and regret. "No, son, just hiding. But it's too late for that now." His father's gaze locked on Clara. "She's in danger, Victor. You didn't just call her daughter. You called forth a legacy." "What do you mean?" Victor's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of his shattered world. The secrets, the lies. Richard smiled grimly. Clara wasn't just born, she was chosen. There's a force at play, and they believe she holds the key. Victor felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. But they can't. They shouldn't. Too late, Richard interrupted. They know everything. They can hear you. You must act now, or you'll lose her forever. But you left us. You left me. A rush of pain mingled with anger erupted from Victor, choking him. His own father had betrayed his family. That's because it was safer that way, Richard replied. I didn't know they would find her. Who are you talking about? The fire cracked behind them, and Clara's breath quickened. Daddy, please, what is happening? Richard looked past Victor, his expression morphing into one of grim realization. They've come for her, he said hastily. We need to go, now. But suddenly, the shadowy figures lunged forward, blocking the path. The suited men were no longer just hunters. They were something more, their eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. Get the child, one shouted, lunging toward Clara. Victor's instincts kicked in. He pushed Clara behind him, but Richard shot out a hand. Stand down, he commanded, his voice booming with authority. And in that instant, a fierce wind howled through the chaos, swirling around them, rattling the very air they breathed. Clara, Victor shouted, panic lacing his voice. Stay close. I'm sorry, Daddy, Clara whispered, her voice breaking. In an unexpected twist, Clara stepped forward, her small frame lit with an otherworldly shimmer. No, don't be. They're here to guide us. Victor's world tilted again. His daughter wasn't just caught in a battle of protection. She was a part of something he couldn't even comprehend. The shadows pulsed and danced, and Clara's face radiated both fear and determination. Clara, what do you mean? He gasped, as the crowd around them echoed disbelief and confusion. But before she could answer, the shadows surged forward, and everything blurred into a storm of chaos and flame, leaving Victor desperate, grasping at the suddenly unmoored truth. Was Clara a key, a problem, or something even more unfathomable? The darkness loomed as the questions spiraled, crackling with an energy that threatened to tear them all apart. What had he been blind to all this time? The shadows swirled, encasing Clara in a shimmering glow. Victor stood frozen, gripping Clara's hand as the suited men advanced, their eyes sharp with hunger. The air crackled with uncertainty, a battle of wills, the stakes climbing higher with each heartbeat. Clara, he whispered, searching her face. What do you know? Her gaze flickered from Victor to Richard, and then back to the men. They can hear my thoughts, she said, just loud enough for him to catch. And they want to silence them. What does that mean? A cold knot formed in Victor's stomach. The weight of her words threatened to crush him. The cloaked figure, Richard, took a step forward. Clara, focus. His voice had an eerie calm, yet his eyes danced with urgency. You need to control it. Don't let them take you. But the shadows lunged, and in that instant, Clara's expression shifted. Fear morphed into fierce resolve. A flash of something deeper flickered in her bright eyes. As the men closed in, she inhaled sharply, the air thick with tension. I'm not afraid, Clara shouted, the power in her small voice echoing against the incoming chaos. But just then, there was a flash. A blinding light burst forth from Clara. It wrapped around her like a wild tempest, swirling and crackling. Victor stumbled back, momentarily blinded as he shielded his eyes. And then everything shifted. The very ground shook beneath them, sending vibrations that rattled his bones. The shadows recoiled, fear flashing across their faces. Clara stood firm, the force around her pulsating like a rhythmic heartbeat. "Clara!" Victor yelled, his voice strained. "What's happening?" The flames behind them flickered higher, the fire thirsty and ravenous, but Clara seemed unfazed. She reached out, the light casting shadows over Victor's worried face. "I don't know," she cried, her voice tinged with both desperation and power. "But I can feel them. They want to know who I am." The cloaked figure, Richard, stepped ahead, his demeanor shifting. Fear morphed into something darker on his face. "We must take control of this, Clara. If you let them know your truth, it will unravel everything." "What truth?" Victor shouted, panic clawing at his throat. "What are you not telling me?" Suddenly, Clara's light flickered again, but this time it morphed, revealing blinding images within it. Faces flashed before Victor's eyes, familiar, haunting. His heart raced as he struggled to comprehend. "No, it can't be." The crowd gasped, eyes wide and mouths open, taking in the unfolding spectacle of power as shadows battled light. Richard's voice was a cold whisper now, filled with dread. "You shouldn't know. I never wanted you to see this." The weight of those words crashed over Victor like a tidal wave. "See what?" he pressed, desperate, confused. But before Clara could answer, the shadows surged forward, rushing like a dark river. She was surrounded, trapped in a dance of light and dark. Victor lunged toward her, but Richard grabbed his arm, holding him back. "No! You'll only make it worse." "Clara!" Victor cried, his voice thick with fear. And that's when the ground beneath their feet cracked. A massive fissure opened up, swallowing portions of the crowd. People screamed, panic filling the air. The chaotic scene transformed into a nightmare as dark tendrils reached out, snatching those too close, dragging them into the depths. "No!" Victor shouted, pulling away from Richard and rushing toward Clara. But she was bathed in blinding light, her small figure somehow balanced on the edge of that darkness. "Daddy!" she screamed, a heart-wrenching cry that pierced through the chaos. Suddenly, with a jolt, the shadows recoiled, and Victor saw it. A flicker of truth slicing through Clara's light. A face, not just from his past, but a twisted version of his own. Himself, as a child, screaming in terror. Recognizing the figure that had once haunted his dreams, landed like a stone in his gut. "Clara, who are you really?" Victor's voice trembled, filled with heartache. But all Clara did was smile, her eyes glowing brighter. "I'm the key, Daddy." The shadows shrank back, the ground trembled, and Victor realized, too late, the truth was unraveling in waves of light and dark, severing ties he thought irreparable. Clara had unleashed something unimaginable, and as the light engulfed them both, he screamed, "No, wait!" But the fissure widened, darkness consuming all he thought he knew, leaving nothing but a haunting whisper in the air. Everything you love will be tested. What lay ahead was a truth far beyond Victor's comprehension, a reckoning that could rewrite their destinies forever. As the blinding light wrapped around Clara, an almost magnetic pulse surged through the air, pulling Victor into its orbit. He felt his heart race as shadows receded, their predatory glances now tinged with uncertainty. "Clara!" he shouted again, desperation clawing at his throat. He needed to know if she was okay, if she could control whatever power she had unleashed. But in that surreal moment, everything shifted. The ground trembled beneath him like a storm brewing, and in the midst of the swirl, Clara's light flickered in hues of gold and silver. Victor's breath caught. This wasn't just a power surge. It felt alive, thrumming with a force that resonated within him. "Don't let them take me," Clara gasped, her small figure gaining intensity, brighter than anything Victor could have imagined. Every fiber of his being screamed. A rift opened wide in the ground, pulsating with a dark energy that mirrored Clara's brilliance. The suited men recoiled, fear flashing in their eyes as they stumbled back away from the chaos unfolding. And then a sound emerged from the depths, a voice, deep and chilling, echoing like thunder. "Victor Sinclair, it ends here." Victor froze. The voice felt all too familiar, sending a shiver racing down his spine. It was laced with contempt, as if it had power over everything. Over him, over Clara. "You," he murmured, barely believing what was happening. Emerging from the shadows behind the rift was a figure draped in an ominous cloak, its presence formidable, yet exuding a chilling familiarity. As the figure stepped into the light, Victor's breath hitched. It was him, or at least someone who looked shockingly like him, an older version, twisted, eyes dark with secrets. "Dad," came a voice from behind, fragile yet grounded in disbelief. Clara's gaze flickered back to Victor, confusion rippling through her small frame. "Is that you?" "Clara, no!" Victor shouted, panic exploding inside him. This was impossible. He had to protect her. But the figure smiled, an unnerving grin that froze him in place. "I'm not your father, but I am part of you," it sneered, advancing with a languid grace. "A reflection of what you could have been if you'd embraced your true self." The crowd gasped, eyes wide, murmurs of horror washing over them like a wave. "What is happening?" someone cried, but all Victor could focus on was the figure before him, its presence a dark mirror warped by his own choices. "Stop!" he shouted, trying to assert control over the situation. "You're not real. You can't be real." But the doppelganger tilted its head, the grin widening. "Oh, but I am. Every choice you made led to this moment. Every lie you told to shield yourself has only bound you tighter to the truth." Victor's heart pounded in his chest. "What truth?" They were standing on the brink of chaos. Clara's voice broke through, small but steady. "Daddy, what does it want?" Then, everything changed again. The cloaked figure raised a hand, and Victor felt a jolt, as if his deepest fears were being pulled from inside him. "I want what is mine," it hissed. "The girl, the power, it belongs to a Sinclair." Suddenly, Clara began to tremble, and in that moment, Victor felt a sharp pain rip through his chest, like a knife twisting. A vision blitzed through his mind, his father in a dark room, pleading with someone familiar yet forgotten. The words rang clear. "You're the one who can control this legacy, not him." Victor gasped, the revelation striking harder than he ever thought possible. "No, that can't be. Clara isn't just a key. She's also a threat." And as the realization sank in, the shadows surged forward, intertwining with Clara's light. chaos roiling like a tempest around them. Everything he thought he knew shattered, leaving only questions. Who was Clara really? What had he unleashed? What did this dark version of himself want with her? As each heartbeat reverberated louder, Victor understood they were in the middle of something far greater than mere survival. Would he dare to confront the truth, or choose to embrace the darkness that lurked within his own heart? As the chaos escalated, one thought lingered. He had to protect Clara, even if it meant confronting himself. The shadows surged forward. And just when Victor felt hope slipping away, Clara's light intensified, bathing them all in a dazzling glow. The suited men staggered back, eyes wide with fear. But that didn't last long. The dark figure smiled, its face a twisted likeness of Victor's own, filled with something that felt ancient and insatiable. "Clara, focus!" Richard shouted, still trying to hold on to the chaos. "You have to control it. Don't let him take you." But Clara stood her ground, determined. "I'm not afraid," she yelled, her small voice strong against the dark tide. The light around her pulsed, almost alive, and for a split second, Victor believed they might turn the tide together. Then, just as the dark figure took a step forward, everything erupted. A piercing siren blared in the distance, interrupting the chaos. Victor's heart dropped. Had the police arrived? But no, it sounded different, demanding, relentless. Everyone turned, uneasy murmurs filling the air, confusion spreading like wildfire. Clara's face transformed, her fierce expression faltering for just a moment. "What is that?" The shadows recoiled, their predatory demeanor shifting as their attention turned to the approaching sound. Gone was their pursuit. Instead, they appeared threatened, recoiling like a wounded animal. Victor's confusion deepened, but there was no time to think. A blinding light from beyond the chaos pierced through the darkness, bathing the scene in surreal brightness. People shielded their eyes from the glare that suddenly flooded the area. And then, it happened. A loud crash resonated through the night, echoing like thunder. The ground beneath their feet split apart, and without warning, a massive vehicle surged onto the scene, barreling through the crowd. An armored truck emblazoned with badges and symbols, none of them recognized. Victor's heart raced as he caught sight of the men and women pouring from the truck. Uniformed agents, faces stern and purpose-driven. They began shouting orders, eyes scanning the scene intensely. "Get everyone back! Move now!" The crowd panicked. It was a whirlwind of humanity, bodies colliding, desperate to escape. Victor grabbed Clara tightly, pulling her against him as they were swept back amidst the chaos. But the dark figure's eyes locked onto the agents as they approached, a shift in expression that sent chills down Victor's spine. "No, not now," it hissed, eyes narrowing in a blend of rage and fear. Suddenly, a woman stepped forward from the agents, a commanding presence with sharp features, cold clarity shimmering in her eyes. "Victor Sinclair?" she called, voice booming. "We need to talk." Victor took a step back, confusion clouding his thoughts. "What? Who are you?" The air grew thick, tension crackling. "You've awakened something you can't control," she stated, glancing at Clara, whose light flickered uncertainly in response to the new arrivals. "And you're risking everything in doing so." The suited men beside the dark figure exchanged glances, hands twitching toward concealed weapons. But before anyone could react, the woman raised her hand, her tone steely. "Stand down, all of you." A tense standoff ensued, the air thick with uncertainty. Victor felt his pulse quicken, the weight of every decision crashing down on him. How had everything escalated so fast? Then Clara stepped forward, her small stature dwarfed by the chaos swirling around them. "You know me, don't you?" she asked, her voice breaking through the tension. "You know what I can do." The woman's eyes widened, and Victor's stomach dropped. "No, it can't be." "What do you mean?" Victor demanded, panic gnawing at him. Clara wasn't a monster. She was just a little girl. "What's happening?" "Clara is more than you understand," the woman said softly, almost in awe, yet her tone shifted with urgency. "She's the key to something powerful, a legacy that stretches beyond you both." Victor felt the ground shift under him again. "What legacy? What do you want with her?" But before she could answer, there was a loud, rumbling roar. The shadows surged again, more wild and frantic now, and the dark figure lunged toward Clara. "No!" Victor screamed, his body moving on instinct, fearing for Clara's safety. But it was too late. Clara's light exploded, a pure spectrum of energy that filled the entire scene. It was blinding. The ground shook, and suddenly everything went dark. Victor blinked, the chaos vanishing, replaced by an eerie calmness. Clara was standing there, but she looked different. Her hair, her eyes, even her expression. "Daddy," she said softly, but now there was something different about her voice. It shimmered with power, echoing off the walls of his mind. The armored agents were gone. The suited men disappeared into the shadows. Victor's heart pounded as he stepped closer, fear and confusion swirling within him. "Clara? I'm here, but I'm not just Clara anymore." Her smile was both warm and unsettling, the power radiating from her now, undeniable. "What did you do?" He felt a chill creep into his bones. "I had to embrace who I am," she replied, each word heavy with meaning. "The truth is, I'm not just your daughter. I am the last of a bloodline that binds us all. And now it's time for you to choose. Stay in the light or follow me into the dark." Victor's mind raced. What had he awakened? What choice lay ahead? His heart thudded, knowing the weight of the decision before him could shatter everything he thought he knew. The night hung heavy with darkness, and for the first time, he felt the veil of certainty lift. What had he really unleashed? What was Clara? And more terrifyingly, who was he now? Victor felt Clara's presence surge with power, a wave of light that promised safety. But as he stared into her eyes, something shifted. The brightness filled the air like a thick fog, and he caught glimpses of turmoil beneath her determination. A mix of fear and resolve that made his heart race. "Clara, please," he urged, desperate for her to understand the weight of the moment. "Daddy, I have to embrace who I am," Clara insisted, her small hands trembling slightly, light flickering as if responding to her emotions. "You need to trust me." But then the dark figure stepped closer, something reptilian about its demeanor, eyes glowing with a menacing hunger. "You've awakened a legacy, Clara, one that was meant to remain buried." With every word it spoke, the ground vibrated, shadows creeping back as if they were afraid. Victor looked around, sensing the crowd holding their breaths. fear plastered across their faces. They were spectators in. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed, and the rift in the ground widened. In that instant, a violent gust erupted, and the world around them blurred into chaotic motion. Victor looked desperately at his daughter, but what he saw sent chills through his veins. Clara's light dimmed, and then, right before his eyes, she began to change. Her features morphed, a ghostly flicker of something ancient and wise, transforming her youthful face. Her hair brightened, exuding clarity, while her expression darkened with untold secrets. "Clara!" he gasped, reaching out. She was still there, but slipping away. "What are you becoming?" In that moment, the world shifted again. The dark figure laughed, a rattling sound that echoed in the sudden silence. "You have no clue what she is, do you? She's the keeper, the guardian, and she possesses the very essence that binds us all." "What do you mean?" Victor shouted, confusion curling in his chest like barbed wire. Clara's once innocent eyes now held a depth that felt like a collapse of reality around him. "I'm not just your daughter, Daddy. I'm your past. I'm the secret weapon of a line that's been dormant for generations." And then, with a flash that pierced the air, all memory flooded Victor's mind. Visions of his father, of whispered promises, of generations lost in darkness. The truth crashed over him like a tidal wave. "No," he breathed, realizing the implications. The legacy was his, but it had been cast aside. Suddenly, a blinding light shot from Clara, enveloping everyone in its grasp, drowning out the shadows. "No, I'm not afraid!" Clara cried, drawing strength from the ancient power awakening within her. But before Victor could grasp the weight of the moment, the ground erupted beneath them. The noise was deafening, like thunder splitting the sky. The rift swallowed the dark figure and shadows alike, pulling them into the earth's abyss. "Clara!" Victor yelled. But as the dust settled, everything stopped. The world was gone. They weren't in Seabreeze anymore. The air felt different. A strange electricity crackled around. Conversations muffled into echoes. Victor took a deep breath, trying to steady the flood of emotions. Where were they? And then he saw her. Not the radiant girl who stood moments earlier, but an older version of Clara. An adult woman, eyes fierce, standing tall against the shifting shadows. "Thank you for waking me," she said, voice now powerful and dripping with authority. "You brought me back, but know this: the war is only beginning." Victor's heart sank. He had opened a door he could never close. Clara wasn't just their savior. She was now someone else entirely. "What's happening?" he asked, his world tilting further. And her answer shattered everything he knew. "I am the one they feared. I am the darkness, bound by blood and choice. You may have thought you were protecting me, but it's too late. Everything is my legacy, and you, dear Dad, are just a footnote." The truth crashed upon him, breathtaking and devastating. What he thought was his daughter was now an entity, a force torn between light and dark, one he could never hope to control. "Clara," he whispered, a mixture of fear and awe lodged in his throat. "What have you become?" And as the shadows swirled around them, a final thought pierced his mind. Would he stand by her side, or was the legacy too much for any father to bear? As the shadows swirled and Clara stood transformed before him, Victor felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. The truth resonated all around him, a visceral echo of the choices he had made, reshaping not just Clara, but the very fabric of their existence. Clara, he breathed again, the name tasting foreign on his tongue. He struggled to reconcile the girl he had known with the powerful embodiment before him. "What are you becoming?" "I'm the keeper, Daddy," she reiterated, her voice now a mix of authority and softness that he didn't recognize. But understanding this might destroy everything we thought we knew. Before Victor could absorb this, the dark figure lunged again, and without thinking, he stepped in front of Clara. The air grew thick with a tense silence, leaving his heart pounding in anticipation of what was to come. Then, just as the darkness threatened to overtake them, a chill swept through the air, a whisper that felt like ice on his skin. Something monumental shook the ground, and a loud crack split the sky. It reverberated through his bones, loud and unforgiving. "What is happening?" he shouted, trying to keep fear from creeping into his voice. The shimmering glow around Clara flickered. Panic flickered in her eyes as a deafening explosion echoed. An orange light erupted from the rift in the earth, swallowing the dark figure whole. Victor shielded his eyes, heart racing as the violent energy pulsated around them like a storm. Then it stopped. The air fell eerie and still. "Clara," Victor called out, dread pooling in his stomach as the dust settled. And then he saw it, what emerged from the blasts. Something neither angelic nor evil, but something that belonged to a different realm. A monstrous figure, draped in shadows, with glowing eyes, stepped through the smoke. It wasn't a walking nightmare. Not entirely. Victor's breath caught in his throat as he realized it wore the face of someone familiar. Someone he never thought he'd see again. "Mom?" he gasped, staring at the creature before him. His own mother, who had vanished years ago, was now twisted beyond recognition. "Is that really you?" Her voice cracked like ice, familiar but fractured. "You shouldn't have called me back, Victor." What happened?" He felt the world tilt, memories rushing back, the chaos of her disappearance. The secrets buried in pain. She was supposed to stay away from this place, away from the truth, the dark figure hissed, using Victor's mother's voice to taunt. But now, look at what you've unleashed. The legacy is half-formed because you couldn't let go. "Get away from her!" Victor shouted, stepping in front of Clara once more. But his heart sank. Could he really protect them both from this newfound horror? "Victor!" Clara's voice trembled, pulling his focus back to her. "What does this mean?" "We need to fight," he said, but uncertainty tinged his words. Everything hinged on the truth unraveling in front of them. Could his mother somehow return to being the woman he once knew? Suddenly, the surrounding shadows began to shift again, swirling around Clara and his mother. A pulsing darkness folded in, a living entity seeking to embrace them all. "Victor!" His mother's voice surged, desperation seeping through. "You need to listen. That darkness isn't just a threat. It's your legacy. Choose wisely, or it will control you." "What are you really saying?" Victor demanded, the chaos closing in as he held on to Clara. The truth hit him with a gut-wrenching revelation. He was part of a cycle that had spanned generations, a cycle that he couldn't escape. All he had ever wanted was to shield Clara. But in that moment, he realized the deadly weight of the choices that awaited him. The tension mounted, every heartbeat echoing a relentless question. Was it too late to change what had been written in the stars? Before he could find an answer, the shadows lunged forward, sucking them into the depths of chaos and confusion. What was waiting on the other side would forever change the course of their destinies. The rift pulsed ominously, shadows swirling like a storm, as Victor found himself standing before two versions of everything he held dear: the darkness of his mother and the radiant glow of Clara. Fear gripped him with icy fingers, but beneath that fear, a flicker of determination ignited in his chest. He couldn't lose either of them. Not now. Not ever. "Mom!" he shouted, his voice echoing. "You have to fight this. You're stronger than this darkness." She hesitated, eyes darting between Victor and the creature that wore her face. I tried to protect you, Victor, but you've stirred something ancient." "Clara, listen to me," Victor urged, turning to his daughter. "You're the key. You were always meant for this. You've got to harness that light." But Clara's expression was a tumult of emotions. "I don't know how to control it," she cried, clenching her fists. The glow around her flickered ominously with her anxiety. "What if I can't?" "You can," he insisted, stepping closer, their gazes locked. "You're not just part of this legacy. You are this legacy. Now show them who you are." With that, Clara closed her eyes, her breathing steadying, and for a moment the light grew brighter, drowning out the shadows. With a surge of courage, she reached out to Victor. "Hold on to me." Victor grasped her hand, squeezing it tightly, grounding her in the chaos surrounding them. And then, with one powerful breath, Clara opened her eyes, now brimming with a fierce light that sent shockwaves through the darkness. "I am not afraid," she declared, her voice piercing through the noise. The shadows recoiled, the dark figure snarled as Clara's light exploded into a brilliant storm of energy. Victor felt its warmth wash over him, enveloping them both. The air crackled with electricity as Clara's power flared, illuminating the space around them. "Stand back!" the shadowy figure shouted, but it was too late. The darkness began to unravel, the echoes of ancient whispers fading into nothingness. Victor watched in awe as Clara's confidence grew, her light slicing through the shadows, transforming fear into hope. "You cannot control me," she shouted, and with one final surge of strength, she channeled everything she had, pushing the darkness into the oblivion from which it had come. A blinding flash illuminated everything. Then silence fell. The oppressive darkness lifted, and Victor blinked against the afterglow, dazed. He looked around. The crowd had retreated but stood awestruck, disbelief etched on their faces. His mother, now freed from the shadows, dropped to her knees, tears glistening in her eyes. "Oh, Victor, I'm so sorry." "Mom, it's okay," he gasped, rushing to her side. The weight of it all settled into a long breath of relief. Clara knelt beside her mother, safe and sound. Relief washed over Victor. They were together again, but the warmth of the moment was laced with echoes of what had been. "What now?" Clara asked, her eyes searching Victor's face for answers. Victor took a deep breath, glancing at the crowd gathering around them, still shocked by the spectacle. "We rebuild together," he said firmly, resolve igniting his spirit. "We make sure the darkness stays locked away." Clara nodded, a flicker of determination lighting her expression. "And we'll face whatever comes next, won't we?" "Always," he promised, feeling the power of their connection, stronger than any darkness that could threaten them. As the crowd began to whisper and disperse, Victor turned to see the sunrise breaking over the horizon. A new day dawned, full of potential and promise, ready for whatever challenge lay ahead. But one question lingered in the air. Was the darkness truly gone, or would it return when they least expected it? Now, before you move on to your day, there's something essential you need to do. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will take you on wild adventures. Click the like button now to feed the algorithm so more incredible tales can reach your screen. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this mind-bending ending, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to know how it all wraps up. Don't wait another